Rise to lead the debate and have read for the second time in this honorable house the bill shortly entitled the Criminal Records Rehabilitation of Offenders Amendment Bill 2023. Madam Speaker, the purpose of the Criminal Records Rehabilitation of Offenders Amendment Bill 2023 is to amend the Criminal Records Rehabilitation of Offenders Act to expand the offenses by which convicted persons' criminal record can be expunged to include cultivation of 5 or less cannabis plants or cultivation such that a convicted person was fined or sentenced for imprisonment less than 3 years. Prior to the decision of the High Court in the Ras Sankofa Maccabee case in May 2019, the possession and cultivation of cannabis was illegal and punishable by fines or imprisonment. The High Court in the Ras Sankofa Maccabee decision adjudged that Section 6.2 of the Drug Act is inconsistent with and therefore infringes the constitutional rights to privacy, freedom of conscience and religion to the extent to which it makes no exemption for possession by an adult in a private place of any amount of cannabis for his or her personal use in private and for religious use by adults in the Rastafari religion. Section 7.1 of the Drugs Act is inconsistent with and therefore infringes the constitutional rights to privacy, freedom of conscience and religion to the extent to which it makes no exemption for the cultivation by an adult in a private place of any amount of cannabis for his or her personal use in private and by an adult member of the Rastafari religion for religious use by adults in the Rastafari religion. The High Court also quashed the convictions of Ras Sankofa Maccabee, a Rastafarian, for possession and cultivation of cannabis. In 2017, the St. Kitts and Nevis National Cannabis Commission was mandated to host a series of consultative meetings throughout the Federation. The purpose of these meetings was one, to engage the populace, 2, share the facts and latest evidence regarding the medical, social, and economic implications of cannabis use, and 3, ascertain the participants' positions on these complex issues, and 4, write a final report for submission to the Cabinet. In its final report dated January 10, 2019, the Cannabis Commission unanimously recommended that, and I quote the recommendations, the current legal regime for the rehabilitation of offenders should be amended to permit the court to expunge the criminal records of persons convicted in the past for possession of cannabis in quantities below the amounts specified in paragraph 6 above, that is the possession of 56 grams of cannabis or 15 grams of cannabis resin. In February 2020, the Criminal Record Act was amended to provide that all persons convicted of an offense or offenses involving 56 grams of cannabis or 15 grams of cannabis resin or less shall be deemed spent and their criminal records expunged. However, under the last administration, the amendment did not address cannabis cultivation convictions. We do not agree with that position. Therefore, the plan of this government, the people's government, is to firmly support the flourishing of a new medical cannabis industry where farmers can be licensed to cultivate cannabis and sell that cannabis for medical uses. Madam Speaker, we are well aware that there are already countries in the Caribbean and of course throughout the world that are capitalizing on the fact that they are now growing cannabis for medical use. I dare speak about our colleagues in St. Vincent and Antigua, for example, and therefore our country must not be left behind. I also want to stress that we send workers to work on cannabis farms in Canada. So why are they allowed to go there to work, to grow it there, and they're not allowed to do it here? There is a grave inconsistency and I dare say injustice with that position, Madam Speaker. So the plan of your government, this government, is to support the use of cannabis as a sacrament within the Rastafarian community, as is their constitutional right. Right in this house, Madam Speaker, members disrespected members of the Rastafarian community, making mockery as they carry out their religious practice. This government believes in equal opportunity, equity, and the rights for all, irrespective of any differences that we might have, whether it be along religious lines, cultural lines, sex, age. We believe there must be equity. And the Rastafarian community is a community that has suffered significantly, not only in St. Kitts and Nevis, but throughout the region. And therefore, we have to make sure that our laws comply with the High Court and make sure that we continue to stress that we should not discriminate and we should follow the law, because law is important. So the plan of this government is to support the cultivation and use of cannabis by adults in their private homes as their constitutional right. The High Court says that. If we have such plans, which are being accepted rapidly throughout the world, why would we continue to punish men and women who were convicted in the past of doing the same activities we plan to promote? This is a very critical matter, Madam Speaker. I have spoken about this multiple times on the political platform. I had the opportunity to study in a communist country and to study in the largest capitalist country in the world, a unique experience. And what I recognize is that in the suburbs of the United States, when white youths are caught with cocaine sometimes, they are treated as a patient and sent for rehabilitation. But our young people in St. Kitts and Nevis, many of them would have been caught with a spliff, a small amount, a couple trees here, are given criminal records that prevent them from really advancing their lives. Many of them can't go to university. Many of them can't get a job in the civil service, have trouble opening bank accounts. Why are we subjecting our young people to these draconian rules that hamper their development, and many of them find alternative pathways that we don't like so much? And so we cannot be treating our youth in the Caribbean like that. We cannot be treating the youth in St. Kitts and Nevis like that. And that is why I'm saying that it makes sense now that we expand this so that we can expunge more records and give the young people an opportunity to correct what they might have done in the past and get on a different path as they go forward. We must deal with this, Madam Speaker, and give lives back to our young people. I want to bring an example. I was speaking to a lawyer yesterday from another jurisdiction in the United States, because even though I had been speaking about this since 2013 when I came on the political platform, the United States has gone as far under the Biden administration to expunge the records. But we were speaking of that long before. So they have fussed us when it comes to that. But today, we're going to make sure that we catch up. Why are they expunging the records of their young people in the United States? Because they recognize that it made no sense to hamper people because they would have been caught with some cannabis earlier in their lives. Noted that I don't like to use the word marijuana too much because it is a discriminatory word. It is a racist word. Mari and Juana are Spanish names, and they call it marijuana when the Mexicans came over into the US and they were using the plant. So I might use it for ease of understanding, but I prefer to use the other word. And you know, they call it here, they call it a herb. So maybe people might understand that a little more. But the principle is that the world is going very fast. and we are caught behind, and we must give our young people the second opportunity that they so deserve. In June 2022, I want to quote here from the American Medical Association. The American Medical Association, of which I was a part. I hope I'm still a part. I'm not actively practicing anymore. But this is a medical association, reputable, well-respected, that in June 2022 had a position when it came to dealing with marijuana. And I want to read it. The Medical Association announced that they adopted new policy at the annual meeting of its House of Delegates, calling on states to expunge criminal records of people who were arrested or convicted of cannabis-related offenses that were later legalized or decriminalized. This is the American Medical Association that has taken this scientific approach and is humble enough to change its trajectory and put forward before the world and all of the states of the US and so forth a position that makes sense. So the policy, so when I saw that popped up in my inbox, I was, shocked. I was like, this is really a revolutionary move by such a reputable medical association. So what I'm bringing here is founded in science. What I'm bringing here is what makes sense. What I'm bringing here is about justice. What I'm bringing here is for us to do as a country, and that is why I'm happy to bring this piece of legislation here today. So the policy, continuing, the policy aims to introduce equity, Madam Speaker, and fairness into the fast-changing effort to legalize cannabis. Adult use of cannabis is legal in at least 18 states, and at least 37 states legalize cannabis for medical use. Yet those arrested or convicted for cannabis use or possession before legalization efforts continue to carry the baggage associated with a criminal record. It's not different here. It is the same thing here. And so we now have to take a position that makes sense, that is just. And of course, in many other countries, these decisions are already being taken. This affects young people aspiring to careers in medicine. I want to say that. This affects young people aspiring to careers in medicine, as well as many others who are denied housing, education, loans, and job opportunities. This is what is happening here. Young people a lot of them cannot aspire anymore because they were caught with a small amount of cannabis some years ago. This is a study that was done by the American Medical Association, and they have found this. And this is not an association that will necessarily study this, but they recognize that young people who are aspiring to become doctors, many of them were blocked because in the earlier years they would have been caught with some cannabis. And they are putting forward that this need to be addressed. It simply isn't fair to ruin a life based on actions that result in convictions but are subsequently legalized or decriminalized. In October 2022, upon pardoning all persons convicted of simple possession of cannabis, President Joseph Biden stated, criminal records for, and he has, I'm just quoting, quote, marijuana. If it were I would say cannabis possession have also imposed needless barriers to employment, housing, and educational opportunities. We have problems here too, Madam Speaker, with employment. You can't be accepted into the civil service with a record such as this, according to many of the rules. Educational opportunities, you can apply for a scholarship to, for example, Germany. We are now having scholarships to Germany, as I promised since 2020. You can't apply for one. You can't apply to Cuba if you choose to go there, for example, to study medicine. You can apply to UE, possibly you want to go there to study law. And I dare say, Madam Speaker, we just expanded economic course, so all the students who go into UE to study, they get economic course irrespective of the profession. I want some of these young people to take advantage of these opportunities. This is real opportunities for our young people, so that they can know that they can lead a life that is uplifting, and we will create the environment and the opportunities for them. I want to see young people coming from McKnight who will go to Germany and become an engineer. One from Newtown who can go to Cuba and become specialist doctors. That is our aim, to remove barriers so that people can have real opportunities to grow and advance in this country. That is what a Labour administration is about. So this is not about talk. This is about coming in here and passing bills that would benefit people. That is why this is going to be a very busy parliament, you know. You see how much bills we laid today, Madam Speaker? And we have a new deputy clerk, young and fresh, with a lot of experience, even though his chronological age does not suggest that. He has been in here a long time, so he's ready to work.
One of my products.
So it's going to be a busy parliament, Madam Speaker, because we have a lot of work to do to make this country right. We have a beautiful country, but we have to make sure that the laws are right, and that is what we are here for. So, Madam Speaker, this is why I'm moving the bill, and I've said that to show people that we are serious about turning the corner with respect to cannabis. On the passage and gazetting of this bill, the criminal records of persons convicted of cultivating cannabis, those who cultivated 5 or less trees, those who were fined, those who receive imprisonment of 3 years or less, will be expunged. Expunged, Madam Speaker. This will include a greater number of persons who can have their records clean and can once again join society in its fullness and pursue their dreams and aspirations. And those persons can show up at the Criminal Records Office at the Bastia Police Station to obtain their clean criminal record. Obtain their clean criminal record. And Madam Speaker, I was speaking to a young man maybe about 4 or 5 years ago at a shop in Monkey Hill, just chilling there, you know, having a drink. And he and I was speaking, and he said, man, look, I met this girl that I fell in love with in America, and I want to go to America, but I can't go. I asked him, why you can't go? He said because he had a record for possession of cannabis when he was about 20, 21. And as a result of that, he feels as if his life is hampered. He cannot pursue the relationship he wishes to pursue because of this. And as I read this bill, my mind is reflecting on him, because this will affect him. Maybe next week after the bill, when this bill is passed, maybe next week he might say, boy, I apply for my visa, and you know, you might be invited to a wedding. This is how serious this thing is. Might be. I'm looking forward. I didn't say real. I didn't say real. So, Madam Speaker, this is going to touch people's lives like this. When I received the word that we'll have the scholarships to Germany, my mind reflected on a particular young man who I know is a bright young man who had issues with cannabis. I want to feel good to tell him, man, look, you can now apply to go to university of your choice. You don't have to stay here and can't get a job here and can't get a job there. I mean, a bright fellow got caught looking for opportunities, can't get a visa, can't get a scholarship, can't get a job in the civil service, can't get a job in certain establishment because they're asking him to bring this criminal record, and when people see that it has on that, it is a no. And so the young man has chosen a different type of lifestyle as a result of that discriminatory type of legislation that was there. I never agreed with it in the first place. I spoke out against it because almost every US president said that they would have used something in their younger years. One of them even said that he used it, but he didn't inhale. Can you imagine that? And they say that to say I was not on the perfect path all the time, but the society gave me an opportunity to reach as far as to become the President of the United States and the leader of the free world. So how is it we could have a young man from Monkey Hill just beating around, bright like a bulb, can't get a scholarship, can't get to study, because in younger years he had a little spliff. We have to make sure, Madam Speaker, that we correct this. And so I want to ask all of the persons here, my colleagues in this House, to put the partisanship aside for this one and to say, let us join in seeing this bill going through safely. And Madam Speaker, might I say that in the future, I'm hoping that we can do even more, because it is my goal that we can do even more. But I want to wrap up this first part, Madam Speaker, by saying, with your leave, Madam Speaker, well, sorry, I would say I now will end my debate here and allow the others to speak on it. I wish it safe passage and encourage all of my colleagues in this honorable House to support this bill. May it please you, Madam Speaker.